How's it going, everyone? The new Team Rocket set coming out this year. We're going to be doing a card tier list of what the most likely cards are going to be in this new Team Rocket set. So, as we know, Team Rocket Legacy is what we're currently translating the Japanese dub over. It was recently copyrighted by Pokemon in Japan. And we are, at least on my end, I'm speculating that this will probably end up being the October-ish release for Pokemon, which usually has a specialty set once a year. So let's dive right into the card tier list. So I've divided up the tier list into 5 different sections. Very top of the list, 100%. These cards are without a shred of a doubt going to be in this new set coming up. Second tier, probably very high chance, but they could be saving maybe a couple cards that will end up in this tier list for maybe a different set, or maybe they've already appeared in a different set and they don't want to overuse that specific card. Third tier is maybe kind of hard to guess whether or not they'll bring these certain cards back, or whether they're going to be, combining sets, which this category will probably fall into. Doubt it is probably the tier I would assign to cards that in the past haven't really been fan favorites. Maybe they appeared already in a Team Rocket set and just didn't really perform very well. And then at the very bottom is hell no. There's no way these cards are going to end up in the new set. All right, so let's start off with Dark Alakazam. So for me, Dark Alakazam, or Alakazam in general, is quite a popular card. We've seen it in 151, and we saw it in Paldean Fates, also Shiny Treasures for the Japanese side. I would probably put this in the 100% category. There's no way they don't include Dark Alakazam. All right, up next we have Dark Arbok. Now, Dark Arbok is kind of interesting. This was a very easy card to pull. You can almost always find this specific card at a card shop that has a wide selection of cards. Now, the only reason I'm going to put it in the probably section is because we recently did get a Arbok illustration rare in, I believe it was it Temporal Forces? I believe it's Temporal Forces. We got an illustration rare of Arbok, and the only way it ends up being a guaranteed card in this Team Rocket set is if they do exactly what they did with Pokemon 151, where they include a massive catalog of Pokemon. So for me, Arbok could potentially be on the chopping block. All right, up next, we have Articuno. So Articuno for me is also probably going to land. I was going to put it in the probably section, but I'm actually starting to think it might go in the maybe section. And the reason why I think the maybe section was because this was in, I believe, EX Returns. And so it's kind of hard to see whether or not this card will make it into the new Legacy set coming out. Articuno is a fairly popular card. Similar to Zapdos, Moltres, whatnot. Not exactly the most popular legendary bird. However, there's a decent probability that it will go into the new set, but I'm not 100% on it, All right, up next, we've got Azumarill. So Azumarill, for me, probably also falls in line with Articuno. And the reason being is that this EX Returns section of Pokemon that includes Johto Pokemon as well is really hard to gauge on whether or not they will make it into the Legacy set. So with the Legacy set, from a marketing perspective, which is my background, it's really hard to determine what it is that Pokemon is thinking with this particular set when it comes to the Johto region, right? So 151 to 251. It's really difficult to say whether or not they're going to include the Johto Pokemon in there as well. However, if they're going to make it a very expansive specialty set, I could definitely see Azumarill making its way in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't include it. All right, up next, we got Dark Blastoise. Now, I was going to put this in the 100% category. However, the illustrator for the Blastoise in 151 was actually the same illustrator for the Dark Blastoise. And so either A, it's a hint that there will definitely be more dark type Pokemon and they'll bring back some of the original illustrators, but there is a very, very small chance, a universe where they don't make a Dark Blastoise. I really want to put it in the 100% section because it would be a shame not to. I mean, this illustration's amazing. You know what? I'll leave it in there. I'm pretty confident in it, but man, I've got some suspicions. Okay. So up next, we got Boss's Way. Boss's Way is really tough for me, right? Because they did Giovanni's Charisma, and bringing back Giovanni again for another set is really tough to gauge. I don't think it's gonna go in. I have pretty strong doubts they'll do Boss's Way unless they did like a Boss's Order type of deal. Then maybe we can put it in the maybe section. But seeing as it's a specialty set and it's not really meant to be played competitively, I strongly doubt that they'll do another Boss's Way card for this new Legacy set. All right. So up next, we got Dark Charizard. That's all you really got to know. There's no way they don't put a Charizard in the set. Now, I was initially thinking about debating on the evolutions of each specific Pokemon, but I decided not to include it just for time's sake. If they include a very specific Pokemon that has an evolution line, more than likely they're also going to include its counterparts from like evolution tier 1, tier 2, and then the tier 3. So I'm just going to assume that they're going to include Dark Charmeleon, Dark Charmander, and so on for the rest of the other Pokemon that have additional evolutions in their Evo line. So we're just going to skip Charmeleon here. Up next, we have Dark Raichu. And the funny thing about what I just said is that Dark Raichu might be the only exception. So if some of the old heads in the that are viewing remember, they didn't make a Dark Pikachu or a Team Rocket Pikachu, at least from my memory. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me down in the comments. But there isn't a Dark Pikachu, and I think that serves a great opportunity for Pokemon to have something that we've never seen before with this particular new set coming up. So I would love to see a Dark Pikachu or a Team Rocket's Pikachu, however they decide to go with the set naming scheme. But I would say there's no way they don't include the very first secret rare card back in this set again. All right, up next we got Dark Dragonite. Again, we didn't really get to see this card get a lot of shine in 151. I'm going to put this in the 100% section. I feel like it would be an absolute miss if they don't bring back Dark Dragonite in this sort of like reboot era of the Team Rocket set. I I am very, very confident they'll bring back Dragonite. And so they'll also have the Dark Dragonair and the Dratini as well. All right, up next we have Doug Trio. So if they are very intentional with this set in terms of what they do and do not put into the set, I want to actually say this is going to be my first hell no. And the reason being is I just don't see Doug Trio really being a fan favorite. Almost this whole like category of like Pokemon is somewhat of a meme in the community. In Japan, it might actually be more popular than it here in the US. But very rarely do I ever hear someone being excited about pulling a Doug Trio. I could be wrong. There might be a slim chance, with like the Doubted, but I just don't see them wasting the space in the set for a Doug Trio again, especially if they have to pick and choose which Kanto and Johto Pokemon to put into the set. I think they learned their lesson with Paldean Fates by having too many cards in a set and making it very difficult to master. And so if they're going to be trying to conserve space, I don't see them bringing back Dark Trio. I could be absolutely wrong. Please come back and roast me if they do decide to do a Dark Trio. So up next we have Entei. Up next we have Dark Entei. Entei is kind of interesting because we have gotten Entei in Crown Zenith. We've gotten Entei in Temporal Forces in the ancient section of that category. However, it hasn't really been seen all that much. I think there's a good chance they bring Entei back for this particular set. I think they should go all out and just bring just the most amazing set of Pokemon. I would love to see Entei. So I'm going to put Entei in the probably section. I wouldn't be surprised if they exclude it and save it for another set. I'm actually going to bring it down to maybe. I think it belongs in the maybe section. All right, and our first evolution. I think this is a tough one. I think they are going to put the evolutions into the set, but I do have some small doubts. And hear me out, evolution fans. With evolutions, it's very similar to Charizard in that there can be an evolution fatigue. And so there is a small chance that they don't end up doing a whole evolution line. However, seeing as the last time we really got like proper evolution attention was back in Sword and Shield, I could see them using this opportunity to really highlight the evolutions, especially because 151 didn't really have any illustration rares or SARs of evolutions, and I think this would be an amazing opportunity for them to put the spotlight on for evolution fans. So I'm rooting for you guys. I really am. I'm going to say this is 100%. We haven't really seen a whole lot of cards featuring evolutions per se, especially in like art rare form. So I think the evolutions are going to get some spotlight in the Team Rocket set. All right, up next, we got Gengar. So Gengar's kind of interesting because we have been seeing, an illustration rare of Ghastly. We got Gengar in Temporal Forces along with Morty's Conviction. So we have seen it a few times now. And I don't know how Pokemon feels in terms of the fatigue around this card. So I'm going to put it in the probably section. But I'm leaning more towards like the 100% category on this one. But there is a world where Pokemon feels like this card had way too much exposure in Scarlet and Violet. So I'm going to put it in the probably section. But I really want to put it in the 100% section. Especially Haunter being my favorite. I would love to see this card be put in the Team Rocket set. However, I'm not going to be totally delusional in the fact that we have seen Gengar a few times already in the Scarlet and Violet block. All right, up next we have Dark Golbat. So Golbat kind of falls in the same line as Dugtrio. However, it is more of like that dark type of Pokemon. So I'm going to put it in the Doubt It section. There is a slim chance it does make its way into the set. However, I'm not super confident about it. All right, up next we got Dark Gyarados. This has to go. This has to go in the set. If they don't put it in the set, people are going to raise pitchforks. They're going to be so pissed. There are so many fans of Gyarados in general. We really haven't seen a whole lot of love towards Gyarados per se. I know there was the Terrestrialized full art that came in, I think it was Scarlet and Violet base or Paldea Evolved. However, there really hasn't been a whole lot of exposure to the fan base, so I really think them bringing back Dark Gyarados is quite probable. I almost want to put in the probably section, but I'm pretty confident. All right, up next we have Here Comes Team Rocket. So this one actually I feel like has a higher chance of making it into the set remastered than the Boss's Way featuring Giovanni. I think a Jesse and James card has to go in there for nostalgia. So I'm probably going to, I feel pretty confident of putting in this in the probably section. Most likely going to happen. It's going to be remastered in some kind of way. I would say there's a 90% chance that this specific card is going to make its way into the Legacy set. All right, up next we have Dark Hitmonchan. Dark Hitmonchan was actually a promo card, if I'm not mistaken. And so that being said, it's a little hard to judge where they would put this. It would look absolutely sick in the Legacy set. So I think Rocket's Hitmonchan does have a decent shot of making its way into the set, but seeing as it wasn't a really like front and center Pokemon, it may get excluded. However, there's just a lot of fans of Hitmonchan in general. All right, next we have Dark Houndoom. So we did recently get Houndoom in Night Wanderer for Japanese, which will be included in the Shrouded Fable set coming out in August. Just for that very reason, I don't know whether or not Houndoom will make another appearance. I think the Johto Pokemon have a lower chance of making it to the mainline Team Rocket set than the Kanto starters. Sorry, the Kanto Dex Pokemon. So for that reason, I do have suspicions that it may get excluded. However, Houndoom is such an amazing Pokemon. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the probably section. All right, up next we have Dark Hypno. So Dark Hypno just really fits the theme. The art style is crazy on this card. I really want to see this card be included in the set. However, because it's not really a fan favorite type of Pokemon and it's more thematical than anything, I'm going to put it in the probably section. I think there's a very, very high chance it does make its way into the set. However, if they do have to make room for other popular Pokemon, I could easily see Hypno and Drowsy being excluded from the set just to make room for other Pokemon. Imposter Oak's Revenge. So this card for me is a tough one. I'm going to put this in the maybe section. I rank it higher than the Boss's Way in terms of popularity. Professor Oak, I think, is generally speaking more sought after, or at least more favorable amongst the fans than Boss's Way. However, not as much as Jesse and James. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the maybe section. I'm leaning more towards probably. However, I think it's more of a maybe for me. If there were two trainer cards that would get reimagined into this new Team Rocket set, I think it would be Here Comes Team Rocket and Imposter Oak's Revenge. All right, up next we have Dark Jolteon. Same deal as Dark Flareon. I think Jolteon will also make its way into this set, so for that reason, we're going to put it in the 100% section. I just don't see them not including it in this new set. Dark Machamp. Okay, so this one is a little tough. The art style is really cool. We did get a Machoke illustration rare for 151, so I could see this getting an illustration rare for Team Rocket. However, I do have my doubts. Although it being a fighting type, it being the Swole Daddy of Kanto, I'm going to put it in the 100% section, even though I do have some small doubts. They're not big enough to put it in the probably section. So I think that will get included. Up next we have Dark Magneton. So Magneton isn't super popular per se. It is a good looking Pokemon. I think in generally speaking amongst fans, people probably would prefer a Magneton over a Golbat and a Dugtrio. It was featured in base set and I believe Fossil twice and then in Team Rocket. So I do see a world where Magneton makes its way into this set. I'm kind of leaning more towards doubt it. However, because there's sort of like that Team Rocket shadow underneath the Pokemon, I feel like reimagining that into this set would look amazing. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the maybe section. Alright, up next we have Mewtwo. So Mewtwo kind of falls into sort of the fatigue type Pokemon. They don't want to overuse this Pokemon, so that way people feel hyped to get it. Once you start making too much of the same Pokemon in many sets, there is fatigue that happens. However, I haven't really seen all that many Mewtwo's other than in 151. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the 100% section. There are, I believe, after Shrouded Fable, probably one more set before we get the Team Rocket set. And there still is an opportunity to include Mewtwo in there. However, I just don't really see it happening. And Dark Mewtwo, I mean, how can you not put it in the set, you know? So I'm going to put it in the 100% section. I feel pretty confident about that. Moltres, however, also going to go in the maybe section for me. Same as Articuno. If Articuno gets chopped, so does Moltres. Nidoking. Nidoking was included in 151. If they do a Nidoking card, it probably won't get an art rare version to it. Same thing with Nidorino and Nidoran. Persian. So Persian's kind of interesting. We just got Persian in Night Wanderer, and it did get an AR for it. So I'm going to put it in the probably section. Although Persian and Meowth are sort of iconic to Team Rocket. So actually I'm going to change my mind and put that in the 100% category. There's no way they don't put the most iconic Team Rocket Pokemon in this set. It would just be mind-blowing not to see that in the set, especially sort of like celebrating Team Rocket, sort of like the legacy, which is in a way celebrating like years of a set or whatever the case you want to use the term legacy for. So I think Persian, yeah, I just don't see a world where they don't include Persian. Okay, up next is Porygon. Porygon's interesting. We don't see a whole lot of Porygon very often in Pokemon sets, even though it is quite a cute Pokemon design-wise. It did have a banned episode, so that did kind of cast a negative light on it, even though Porygon did nothing wrong. I'm going to put it in the doubt it section. I think it has a higher probability of getting in than Dugtrio, but probably the same probability as Golbat. Up next is Dark Primate. For me, Primate is probably going to be in the Hell No section, mostly because we did have the, I forget the evolved form of Primate. if you guys remember the name of the evolution of Primeape, let me know down in the comments below. I do suffer from boomeritis, and there's just way too many Pokemon at this point. But we did recently get a set for Primeape, its evolution, and what have you. And generally speaking, I didn't see a whole lot of hype around it. I didn't see a lot of people super enthusiastic about it. So I'm going to actually put it in the heck no section just because of that, and seeing it kind of recently. So this next card is kind of interesting. So Rainbow Energy. Rainbow Energy, I could see making a return. However, I don't see them necessarily having to put it into the set. It is quite iconic, since this is when we first saw Rainbow Energy. I want to put it in the probably section, but I just don't see a reason for them to waste a card slot in a set for something that may or may not really have that much utility, especially since most specialty set Pokemon and cards aren't really used in the competitive arena. So for that, I'm going to put it in the maybe section, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it in the set. All right, next we have Dark Raticate. For me, Raticate, even though it is thematically correct to have Eradicate, I'm just going to put that in the hell no section. I personally don't want to see it. If there are any Raticate fans watching, let me know. Let me know down in the comments below if you're a fan of Raticate or Dark Raticate, Rattata. But I just don't see them really needing to put Raticate in this set. It didn't really make much of an impact, and so I think they would probably reserve that slot for something a bit more memorable. All right, up next we got Rocket's Scizor. So with Scizor, it's kind of an interesting spot. We haven't seen this, I think, since Obsidian Flames, if I'm not mistaken, or really close to the Obsidian Flames set. It's been quite a minute, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the return of Scizor. However, Scizor has historically not really gotten a lot of spotlight. I'm going to put it in the maybe section. Along with Scyther. I think Scyther and Scizor have a good chance, but I have way too many doubts to put them in the probably section, so I'm going to leave it in the maybe section for now. Alright, and next we got Dark Slowbro. I don't know what it is, but whoever is the decision maker for what Pokemon does or doesn't make it into a set, I think really has a soft spot for Slowbro. We see Slowpoke and Slowbro in so many sets that I think there's a pretty high chance we're going to see Slowbro again. So for that, I'm going to put Slowbro in the probably section. There's also that Team Rocket shadow in the background, so I could see that being remastered. And I think there's a pretty good chance that it'll make its way into the set. Alright, so up next we have Dark Sneasel. I believe this is Rocket Sneasel. Let me check. Yeah, Rocket Sneasel. So Rocket Sneasel, for me, I don't really feel like it made much of an impact back in the day. The card does go for quite a bit. However, I just feel like it didn't make that big of an impact for it to deserve a slot in the Legacy set. So for that, I'm going to put it in the Doubt It section, but I feel like it still has the ability to make its way in there. Cool. So Rocket's Snorlax. This one's really tough to gauge. Snorlax has a huge following. It's cute, it's cuddly, it's big, it's bougie. I mean, it's, the food Pokemon. So it's really hard to say whether or not we're going to get this one. I'm going to put it in the... Man, it's tough. I'm torn between probably and maybe. We did get an art rare of Snorlax, but because it's Kanto, I am leaning more towards them giving Snorlax another spotlight in the Rocket set, but it definitely won't get... I mean, there's a small chance, but I feel like they're not going to do any kind of illustration rare. I think it'll be like a regular holo card. All right, next we have Dark Steelix. So Steelix, I feel like would be one of those Pokemon they would want to include in the set. I'm going to put that in the probably section right next to Snorlax. I feel like this is one of those Pokemon that they would want to include in the set, and they would, take something out like Golbat or Porygon or one of those like very lower tier ranked cards in order to make room for Steelix and most likely Onix as well. So I could see, a dark Onix and a dark Steelix easily making its way into the set. So I'm going to put that in the probably section. I'm actually leaning more towards the 100% section. I do have some small reservations, but I feel like Steelix, having only been showcased once in the Scarlet Violet block, I think it was Scarlet and Violet base. I could be wrong. It might be Paldea, but it was definitely early on, and we haven't really seen a whole lot from Steelix after that. So for that, I think we have almost a guarantee to see Steelix in this next set. Up next, we have Suicune. So Suicune, I'm probably going to put right next to Entei. If Entei gets chopped, Suicune gets chopped. If Entei gets put in, most likely Suicune will get put in. Alright, up next is Tyranitar. Tyranitar is an absolute fan favorite. There's a huge following for Tyranitar. Big boy, big energy. We saw a lot of him in Temporal Forces. We saw a lot of Tyranitar. Well, Iron Thorns is the future name of Tyranitar. So we've seen him in a couple sets already. I don't think there's any fatigue for Tyranitar right now. Up next is Dark Vaporeon. Easy 100%. Then we have Rocket's Venusaur. Rocket's Venusaur, I'm going to put up in the 100% section. If they don't include Blastoise, then they won't include Venusaur, in my opinion. I could be wrong here, but I just don't really see a world or a reason why they wouldn't. So for that, I'm going to put it in the 100% section. Up next is Dark Vileplume. Vileplume does have some enjoyers, especially amongst girls. There are some fans, like I like Gloom personally. So my bias wants me to have it be put in the maybe section, but I'm actually going to put it in the doubt it section. It is a dope card. It did get quite a bit of spotlight in the older sets. However, for this one, I'm kind of hesitant. I'm really torn between doubt it and maybe. I'm going to put it in the maybe. I don't see why they would exclude it. It's a great Pokemon. There's a lot of great art potential for Dark Vileplume, so I don't see why they would exclude it. But if they had to make room, I could see Vileplume being on the chopping block for that reason. Zapdos is going to fall in the same line as Moltres and Articuno in the maybe section. And that's everything. So we do have a lot of Pokemon that I think that we've seen in past generations of Team Rocket Returns, and some of those Gym Series ones as well. I could also see a Dark Hitmonlee making its way in there. I could also see, I don't think we're going to get any Pokemon after Generation 2. I think they're going to specifically highlight Kanto and Johto for this reason. And I think what most likely Pokemon is doing is they're entering their reboot era. I'll talk about it in another video. When that video comes out, I'll link it down in the description below. But I think we're currently in the reboot era of Pokemon, where they're going to be bringing back a lot of the older sets for nostalgia, to kind of bring back some of the older collectors and give them something to look forward to every year. For that reason, I don't think they want to remove spots in the set to incorporate and account for newer fans. And so I think this one they are dedicating towards the older fan base by giving them something that hits just right for nostalgia reasons. If there's Pokemon that I personally didn't mention in this particular tier list, there are many others I would, of course, include in here. But if you think there are some Pokemon that absolutely are going to get included, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to have a discussion about it. And maybe I'll make a part 2 to this list that might be a bit more comprehensive. But in the meantime, I think this is a very good start to knowing exactly what we're going to get in the Team Rocket set coming out in October. I don't see this coming out any later. I don't think it's going to be a specialty set like Paldean Fates. It's possible they stopped doing the whole shiny thing, but they've been doing it for several years now. So if I had to guess, 80% chance that this will be in October. If not, and this does end up taking the place of shiny Pokemon, then we're looking something closer to like December, January. I don't see why they wouldn't want to do this right before the holidays. So for that reason, I'm gonna say that more than likely this is going to be our October set. Guys, thank you so much. If you stuck it all the way through the video, thank you so much. It means the world. If you have a moment, toss up a like if you liked it. If you didn't like it, thumbs down it for sure. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next video, and I've been Daggerito.